Call the meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Leonard Village Council. Today is Monday, May 10th of 2021. I'm going to call the meeting to order, but before we actually begin the meeting, I'd like to dedicate tonight's meeting to, in remembrance of active firefighter Chuck Johnson of the Addison Township Fire Department, who passed away due to COVID complications last week, and also in the former Assistant Chief of the Addison Township Fire Department, Ray Rice, who passed away due to complications of COVID as well. So our hearts and thoughts go out to the families of those men, and I'm sure you share my appreciation of the job they did for our communities. So with that, I'll ask for everyone to stand for the pledge of allegiance and invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands.
Dear Heavenly Father, we ask that you be with us at this meeting. Help us make good decisions for this community. Be with those families that are hurting. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, we'll have a roll call for attendance for the village council members.
President McDonald.
Here.
Mrs. Sutherby.
Here.
Mrs. Arundel. Here. Mrs. Swack.
Here.
Mr. Kennedy.
Here.
Note for the record that Clerk Cindy Grosskopf is present and Treasurer Judy Versus is here. Council received the minutes of our last regular meeting, April 12th of last month. There was one correction we got to make, or actually fill in the missing information. I tried to do it, but I didn't have the original minutes, so Cindy will help us fill that in, I hope.
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
If you look on the second page, it says downtown purchase authorization, items and concrete. A motion was made by Mrs. Arundel to approve that request. And then I think Mr. Kennedy was second that motion, but we don't have the rest of that sentence in your minutes is from last month. You missed it, bottom line. So we're going to try and make that amendment.
Okay, so downtown purchases, $43. $700 cement.
Do you just want the money that you're not to exceed it by?
Right.
It's $4,900.
Okay.
If that's what you're looking for.
That's for the benches and
Right.
purchases.
Yeah, and then it was seconded by Mr. Alex.
Yeah, but I had the names, I just didn't finish that sentence, I didn't replace it, so.
Roger was the secretary's school.
It shows $3120 and $2,700. I don't know what the 3120 is for.
Those were, I think, the two different quotes for the aggregate.
Yes, and then we were going with the aggregate for the cement,
Right.
which was the higher price point.
3120?
3120?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, then, with that information included, are there any other questions, changes, or corrections? If none, approaching motion to approve the amended minutes with the order.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I'll second.
Okay, are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes of the April 12th regular meeting, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Okay, minutes are approved. Council has an agenda before it. Are there any additions, removals, questions? If none, a motion to approve the agenda is in order.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as printed.
I second that.
Thank you. Is there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion as presented, or the agenda as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Okay. Council has before it the treasurer's report for the village of Leonard for the month of April. Are there any questions, changes, corrections? I might be able to answer them without you being here. Looks pretty straightforward. If there are no questions, a motion to receive and file the approved report would be in order.
I make a motion to receive and file the treasurer's report.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any questions on the motion? Okay, we have a roll call for that, please.
Mrs. Aaron?
Yes.
Mrs. Swack?
Yes.
President McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Liberty?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda are the accounts payable for the month of April. And the amounts are, as shown, $29,282.62 for general, $30.21 for major, and zero for local, and mill park and recreation, $2,000.
I'd like to make a motion to pay the bills in the amount of $29,282.62 for general, $30.21 for nature, nothing for local, and $3,000 for mill park recreation. Sorry, did I say 3,000?
Yeah. I'd like to second that motion.
Okay, are there any questions on the motion or the bills? Hearing none, we have a roll call to pay the bills for April.
Mrs. Liberty?
Yes.
Mrs. Swack?
Yes.
Mrs. Aaron?
Yes.
President McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time, we offer the people present in the meeting to address the village council on any subject that you may wish to bring before it. We ask you to be brief and to the point. And with that, is there anybody just raise their hand? Okay, I don't see anybody raising their hand, so we'll move on to new business. The first item on our business is the Leonard Sewer Study presentation. I want to introduce the council to Mr. Paul O'Meara, who is working with the village and the other agencies on behalf of us and for Rowe Professional Services to put together the sewer study. And welcome, Paul, and please feel free to address the presentation or make anything you want to tell us.
All right, and Rowe appreciates having this opportunity to work with you, and I personally appreciate it as well. So I put together just a quick little presentation to help organize your thoughts as this process takes on. So obviously, probably everybody here knows that the village has some poorly operating septic systems and permits have been denied. So developing a public sewer will be explored. And the goals of the study is first to collect information that we have about local properties, which ones are fully developed, which ones might be developed further in the future, and what will be the future uses, so that we kind of plan for the future if the sewer system is built. And we want to define the boundaries for the potential sewer district, because obviously there's a lot of different options for that. Mike has indicated to me that the main focus would be the smaller properties, the ones that don't have much room to expand with a septic system of their own. Then we would review the various methods of treatment. We would discuss the pros and the cons and determine which is the best for the village. And right now we're leaning towards a forest main system where each individual building would still have to maintain their own pump in order to get the sewage to flow into wherever the treatment facility is. With the idea that Leonard doesn't want to really be in the sewer business, as I understand it, and you don't want to end up with a big maintenance task on your hands that needs to be operated on a long-term basis. Then we would develop a timeline for the sewer system, including the design and the permits, the property acquisition and the funding and financing. A lot of different questions there, obviously. And we develop a cost opinion for both the collection system and the treatment system. And then finally identify funding sources and discuss the pros and the cons of each. So that's probably the biggest slide. We can go back to that if you have any questions later. We're recommending that there be a sewer committee formed to specifically sit down and talk about this issue. Probably wouldn't have to meet very often, but we'd like to have a commercial property owner represented, a residential property, preferably a small residential property, an industrial property if possible, and then an at-large resident, someone that can kind of approach the system more globally, and then a council member as well. And the things we want to talk about are the short-term and the long-term goals for the sewer system. What would be the logical boundaries? And then the maintenance of the system, would that be something that Leonard would take on, or would they pay a fee to somebody like Oakland County Water Resources Commission and let them take care of it? And then if we do decide on the latter, then we'd have to obviously design it to meet their needs as well, because they'll have some standards that they would want to have met. It might be a little more stringent than what would be necessary otherwise. And then funding considerations would include outside funding sources like USDA. There'd also be bonds and loans to be considered. And then another big question would be ordinance provisions. Do we have to force people in, or would it be voluntary? Those types of things obviously need to be wrestled with as well. And then depending on the input from others in the meeting availability, I'm hoping that the study will be concluded between 4 and 6 months. So that's it for that. I feel kind of rude sitting down in front of you, so I'm going to get out of here. But I think that's the answer to the question how to discussion.
Well, thank you. I think Paul has told us, taking the information that I provided him, as well as you have a lot of experience with this, with managing communities in these regards. And that's one of the things I liked about his background. You were in Birmingham.
Yes, I was a city engineer for many years in Birmingham, so there was a lot of committees like this that we formed and worked with them for like a year or so, and then we would disband, just to have a certain task in hand.
Well, this is the beginning of days, so to speak. So I think that I would like to put before the village council his recommendation, particularly for the ad hoc committee and the constitution of that committee. And then I'll open it up to the council. Is there any questions you'd like to talk to Paul about, or priorities? Did you hear something you didn't agree with or didn't understand? Or is there anything else that we can do to clarify this here in the beginning? Because that could really be a key factor if we've overlooked something. And if the council doesn't have anything, does anybody else present? Did you hear anything or not hear anything you would like to have heard? Okay.
With a flow to main system like that, or pump to main system, do you typically have any kind of monitoring for your industrial customers?
That's a good question. I think it's not so much in the pipe itself, but obviously once you get to the treatment system, yes, that's important. You don't want to end up with a burden on your hands that you have to take care of. So there definitely got to be some, if we suspect there's somebody that's connected that's going to be dumping stuff that's tough to treat, you have to work that out at the beginning.
Sure. And something along the lines of, you mentioned that if we had like a water resources commission, what kind of, do you know, have any idea what kind of fees they charge or what kind of additional cost impact they may have?
Well, I hate to say this publicly, but I know historically, at least if you've got the resources to do it yourself, you probably do it out. Because they're gonna obviously charge you everything that's their costs, and then you probably get somewhere on top of that. So,
And in a system like this, what would a typical operating cost be with, say, what kind of workforce do you need to operate a system like that?
that's a good question, and I don't know, because this is a lot smaller than I've worked with in the past, but I can certainly try to get those answers as we get into it further.
Sure, because I think some of those questions will be important to determining how we want to take and move forward if we want to make those kind of adjustments to it.
Yeah.
My question is, if we take it on ourselves, would someone have to be trained? Is there
Yes.
a training program for that?
Yes, there is training programs by the state that you can be licensed at different levels. And a smaller community obviously requires a less amount of training. But there should be somebody that's licensed to actually operate the facility.
And it would depend on the type of facility as well, correct?
Right, and you don't have to have that as a staff person, you can hire a company that can come in and do it for you.
I'm not sure, but that's something that we can explore because Dryden has their own facility that's managed, as I understand it, by them. So
So there's somebody that we could talk to.
if it's a part-time situation, there's
And
certainly an option.
they share things like inspectors, they may be willing to
Right.
share somebody like that too.
It's certainly an avenue that we could
Yeah.
explore.
And is it best to put it together to be able to have Oakland County take care of it, even if we don't plan on them taking care of it?
Well, I think we'll want to explore that as it's a much higher cost to construct in the first place.
Wow.
That's certainly something we need to
I mean,
explore.
it's more of a just
So-
case.
I'd like to see our system be locally operated and with the lowest overhead, because that all translates into costs that are transferred to the customers, so.
Yeah, there's companies obviously out there that would bid on this. If you put a package out, say you want a 2-year contract to maintain the system, do it as a competitive bid. There are other cities or villages that do that.
But if we did our own, we should have at least 2 people trained.
Yeah, I don't know how much, if it's a daily requirement, I'm sure depending on the system, it would vary how much.
Yeah, I think you only need that one person that's actually licensed, but then you wouldn't want to have a fallback person, obviously, because nobody can be there 24 hours a day.
At least familiar with the system as
Right.
well. Right.
Mhm.
And you'd also be considering like a community septic type system, correct?
Yes, yeah, that's actually probably our priority, or our favorite at the moment.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because I think people are thinking, when you talk sewer system, the whole plant, everything coming in versus it could be downsized to a simpler.
Right, it would, that's what we're envisioning is a glorified septic system that can handle a lot more flow.
Okay. I just want to make sure,
Okay,
so
great.
everyone understands.
Okay, anybody else?
Does that count as green space and get credits?
I don't know. I don't know how much credit you get for putting up a sewer
It's
system.
just
You know,
green space. You want to take their credits right in.
yeah. Well, Addison Township's very negative about expanding a community septics and that. They've had bad experiences with Hidden Lakes Trailer Park as well as Copper Hills. It's been very difficult when they're privately owned and operated. So hopefully we can learn from,
Maybe we'll go back to the oil well drilling.
yeah, there you go. Just pump it down an injection well and
Right,
forget
the
about
injection well.
it. Yeah. Well, thank you, Paul.
Well, how soon would you want to meet with your ad hoc committee?
Well, hopefully within a couple of weeks, if it's clear who the members will be.
Which brings us, brings us to our second item, which is, first, I think the council should decide whether or not to form the committee. I do recommend that we do so. And then, once we have formed it, we can also start with the membership of that committee. So, as the village president, I am recommending that we follow the advice of our consultant and create an ad hoc committee on sewers, membership of which would be, as he indicated on the slide.
So are you making the motion, or you want us to make the motion?
I'm recommending it, and if somebody else wants to make the motion,
I would like to motion that we move forward with the ad hoc committee to work closely with rural consultants regarding our sewer study.
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a support to create an ad hoc committee following the recommendations of the consultant on formation and membership. In other words, we're going to have those positions that were outlined: industrial representative, small business representative, small residential representative, at large, and then a council member.
Who should that large be?
Well, I think we'll have to ask. I think we need to let the public know that we're looking for someone. Generally, that might slow us down a little bit unless council wants to give me authority to appoint someone that comes forward. But it would be, generally, the village president is responsible for recommending memberships to committees, councils.
Well, like I said, we'd have a small residential lot. Should it be somebody outside of the?
I think at large means just that. Maybe,
Yeah, probably somebody that's not too directly impacted with the financial and
Or may not be, depending on where the boundaries are there.
right. Somebody that hopefully has the best interest of the village at hand, not just thinking about their own situation.
but I would say, having that said, we're actually kind of excluding somebody from the downtown area for that position. They should be outside at least where we think we'd like to serve.
I guess a large parcel that is probably not going to be served by a common septic is, somebody
Yeah.
who really doesn't have any,
Right. Which is most of them.
which is mostly outside.
Most of the people, right. Okay, so if we're agreed on that, then, we need to vote on that? Yes.
It's not dollars.
Pardon?
It's not dollars.
No, but
Don't you-
we're creating a committee.
We put this forth that.
So, yeah,
So are you looking for the recommendations?
No, right now, we're just gonna create the committee as we saw here. Then, we will discuss the appointees to that committee. Okay? Everybody agree? Understand? Okay. So, on the creation of the ad hoc committee on sewers, and that it will be created and using the guidelines that were discussed and shown to us. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. Okay, so the committee's created. And then I do have some recommendations. I did approach Trustee Arundel about being the council representative, unless somebody else wants to jump in there. If not, that would be my recommendation for the council member. And then tonight, Chris Martell is here. Chris and Jennifer and I talked about it, and Jennifer and I recommend Chris to be the residential representative for within the probable zone, and as the relatively small lot.
Well,
It's definitely not the smallest,
Yeah,
but,
city.
Well, you have both, you moved on both sides.
It's big enough.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, I did contact Cooper Standard about having a representative, to represent the industrial side. They expressed an interest in being part of the system, but they did not want to have a representative on the committee. That possibly that could change, but right now that's how they want to do it. So we can either try to fill that, but I'm not sure who that would be. It's a pretty unique position.
Or did you check with the Trinity Design?
Well, that's commercial. It's not large, that's not industrial.
Industrial.
How about the trucking down the street? Does he count? He doesn't have waste.
Mr. Starr?
That would be one. I mean, I don't know if he has
No,
use of the system like.
well, he might potentially be in the area, but we don't really know that yet.
But I don't know if he's using it industrial or, the septic system.
Oh,
Keeping trucks, that's
yeah,
so
no,
he
I
won't do it anything.
I don't imagine
So
there
that
is.
was another one.
So, and then, last but not least, we don't have an at-large, and for small business, it was suggested, Jennifer and I talked about it, I would recommend Dave Rathberg. He's agreed to do it if appointed. He represents a significant, number of properties in the zone, so to speak, in the downtown area. So tonight I would appreciate it if council would approve the appointment of Councilwoman Arundel, Mr. Martell, Mr. Rathberg. Who else do I have? That's it.
Let me ask you, since I'm outside the limit, could I also handle the large? Or do you want another perspective? Because that leaves us 3, 4.
Yeah, that might not be a bad idea because Paul had brought forth that sometimes committees, when you have even numbers, can't reach a majority on recommendation. So I think we should consider that as part of our consideration.
I was also going to volunteer if needed for the resident at large, because I'm most likely going to be outside that district, but also my lot is by borderline in terms of size.
Right. Okay. What are the council's thoughts? I have no problem recommending Councilmember Kennedy for that, but do you want to do that, or do you want to try to get somebody from outside the council?
If he's willing, I say take Mr. Kennedy. That's my opinion.
Okay. Well, I'll recommend that then as the at-large.
Is that 4?
Yeah, 4.
Okay, and so then the decision is to try and find
So if the
a fifth.
person who's willing would probably not
What
be
about
better.
Paul O'Reilly?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, he's certainly familiar with the village. Okay, well, I'll have to talk to him first, but if we can get 4 members together and approve tonight, and if the council wants to give me tacit approval for Mr. Almoranti, tonight, I have no problem asking him if he'd be interested in helping us out. He lives on Basin
He's
Street.
a small parcel of the village too, or is he a larger parcel?
He's got a couple acres.
So as I said, the question is, can you put a septic on his field or no?
Yeah,
Yes,
his lot is large enough
Okay, so
that he
he's-
has a secondary location.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Although, you
So
know,
he
that-
provides a mix, that's, you're just
Right.
looking for a mix.
what are we thinking? Authorize my recommendations, and if Paul doesn't accept, I'll come back and let you know.
Okay.
All make a motion to accept the nominations and consider Paul for the fifth.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the recommendations to appointments to the ad hoc committee, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say no. And let me, at this time, thank you, Chris, and the other people that have come forward and volunteered, Alex and Jennifer. And we'll get Mr. Rathberg and Mr. Almoranti involved. We should be, that way we can at least get started with that part of the study. So I think we're good. Even if Mr. Almoranti can't be there the first time, if he doesn't accept, we can still get a good start. So, okay, well, thank you, council, for that. Next item is the Leonard Strawberry Festival Public Safety Discussion. Mr. O'Meara, if you want to stay.
Close all that down, so
Okay, so, as council knows, the Strawberry Festival was not held last year because of the COVID pandemic and the potential safety of people that gathering and gatherings at large in any community. It wasn't just in Leonard or Oakland County, it was the entire state and most of the country. This year, festival still remains to be held on the third Saturday of July, but the question is there a health or safety risk? We're all sitting here generally 6 feet apart with masks on, and July is literally 2.5 months away, if that. The Strawberry Festival Committee from our community works with the Firefighters Association to put on the festival. And I've had a continuing conversation with both the festival chairman and with the Firefighters Association, who ultimately, in this case, will likely defer to the department chief because he's the one that's responsible for making sure that there are people available to answer calls. And I have to tell you, as you heard earlier, he's had several firefighters have had COVID. It has severely impacted his operations because they have to quarantine anybody that worked with or around them on a run. They have not had their regular meetings. They still meet by video conferencing. They have no practices, regular meetings and maneuvers, which is, that impacts the operations of the department, but it does keep the people safe. And his priority is to keep his people safe so that they can answer calls to service us. So that has been my priority as well. Now, the fire chief has said that if the firefighters elect not to do it this year because of the COVID and the possible impact it could have, on the department operations, that they have no objection to the festival committee going forward without them. However, at the last meeting of the festival committee, they said that they did not see themselves doing it unless the firefighters were doing the Strawberry Sundays. And they did ask me, and I did request that the Firefighters Association consider remotely making the Sundays, like away from the crowds, and then like have them transported here. And it did not sound like something that they were going to entertain or do. The big problem they have is obviously, the festival can be mostly outdoors, but they're in a building, and for a number of reasons they have to be. for health and safety reasons. And so the exposure to them is concentrated. And so tonight, I'm just asking the council to authorize the cancellation should the Firefighters Association and, I'm assuming because of what's been said, the festival committee, they need to know, they really wanted to know a month and a half ago almost. And they understood under the circumstances that it would, firefighters and the fire chief said mid-May we'll have a better idea of how things are going. Obviously, the loss that they've suffered with the death of one of the firefighters from COVID, albeit complications, he never made it out of the hospital. It's really weighing heavily on them now. You know, they've lost a member that was a very active member, and it's just been a month now. He was in the hospital, from the time he was in the hospital to when he passed, it was a little over, he was a couple days over 3 weeks. So I'm afraid that'll be an influence on them as well. So that said, I'm just asking the council for discussion and then authorization to let the festival committee and the firefighter association determine whether or not we're going to have a strawberry festival this year. I personally am concerned because the number of infections is so high now. It is starting to go down, but you know, Michigan is the highest infection rate of all 50 states right now. I just don't get it, but it is what it is. So, and one of the things that occurred to me personally was that right now, over 20% of the new infections are among children. And so having a festival without kids really isn't an option. I just hate to see them have, you know, the schools and everybody have exercised great care. We could undo all of that in one weekend, literally. So I think that's something that we should all take into consideration. But I will open it up for council consideration. Any thoughts, anything you want?
I'd like to say that this festival began with the firemen, and I personally don't think it should go on without the firemen. That's my personal opinion. Secondly, in yesterday's Detroit Free Press magazine, they recommended, they can't enforce, but they recommended people not go to these festivals and large events at this time. And so for both those reasons, I believe we should not participate.
If that's the decision, or are
Yes,
you just saying flat out right now,
Yep.
we shouldn't do it?
I don't think we should do it, but I back the fire department. Whatever they choose, I believe is the right thing, because it is their lives on the line.
Absolutely. Okay.
I guess I wish we had somebody here from the festival committee, because my question would be is, most of the attractions we have are like the bouncy house, food vendors, they're all congregational things. I mean, what alternative attractions would we be able to have that would not be, everybody's licking the wall?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, honestly, what you said, I mean, these are the kids' rides, and, you know, my kids lick things they're not supposed to.
That's normal behavior. But I take your point. I think we all do.
Yeah, I mean, if we had something maybe like concert or fireworks, something where you can, you know, still distance, but I don't think those would be the attractions we're still going to get. I mean, I think we still get like the train, the petting zoo, the spreader things.
But it'd also be nice for more uplifting, to have anything at all.
Yes, yeah, I mean,
Maybe
Maybe,
even a tractor parade or something, I'm just saying.
Well,
yeah, I mean,
odds are something will happen regardless.
But
You
I'd
know,
like
I
it to
mean,
be.
I think we've seen it in the past, before there was a strawberry festival component, there were people out that would block the streets and have mini tractor pulls and stuff like that. It was, I remember when I first moved here, that was going on, you know, so it wasn't until the late 80s that the village got organized and started seeing the potential for a community event.
It started in the bicentennial year. That was the first one, and it was a few years later that they actually started.
Yeah. So, anybody else?
I guess it would just be nice to see something happen that doesn't forget it,
Right.
that doesn't replace it.
yeah, the other thing too that was my concern, I've been thinking about this for a little bit, is it's not just our community that will be attending, it's
Right.
everybody coming from everywhere else. So I tried to do a quick look over the last weeks to see what competing events would be going on. If there were not competing events, I would feel a little less apprehensive about it, but it doesn't always seem like there's a whole lot going on because of the same reasons. So we advertise that we have an event going on and people are gonna show up.
That's right.
Not that we don't want that, you just,
Right.
Right, we don't want it.
it's,
Well, the festival committee did their due diligence, and they opted not to have fireworks this year. Expense was the main reason, and then there was concern about where they would do it from, and so they decided to put it off a year and then reconsider it because it'll be the 70th anniversary next year of the Strawberry Festival. And they thought maybe that would be a more appropriate time to celebrate. But, does anybody else have a comment? Well, as far as I'm concerned, well, we can leave it that, does the council want the firefighters association and the fire chief's decision to be the final say? Or do we want to let the festival committee, because we represent them and they're part of us. So if it's going to be us affected too if we say
Like the festival committee?
yes or no. Yeah,
Well, really, whoever says no, it's going to affect us.
yes, absolutely.
So we're in a losing situation.
Well,
Well, so is the fire department, and they're concerned about that. They're concerned that people are going to be angry with them if they say no. And I believe that they have the right to protect their people. And if their decision is that it is not safe, we, as a council especially, need to support them and not say, yeah, it's all them. We need to be supportive of them and say it was a joint effort.
yeah, and the festival committee gets that. And I think that's why they didn't vote or anything, but they did say that if the fire department decides not to do it, then they're not going to do it either. So that's the way it was at the last meeting. So that's my expectation. But
So do you want our opinions of, no, it should not be going on because we need to take COVID into consideration?
No,
And maybe try next year?
well, I think we don't have to say, I think it's really up to the fire department and the festival committee ultimately. But we have to support a decision. And I guess my recommendation, and based on what I heard from the festival committee, is that if the firefighter association and the fire department decide that it's not worth the risk to them, but also they're thinking of the public. You know, they have to get 2-3 people on an ambulance to every rescue, let alone fight fires. And they've already had a couple of experiences with their membership of other firefighters that have had COVID, and they've had to quarantine members of the department for 14 days. And so that's a
Not a big department.
That's a heck of a net, right, and that includes paramedics. Everybody there is not a paramedic, so they really need, the paramedics are working 3-4 shift, 3-4 24-hour days. So when that happens, it's just really hard on them. So yeah, I think we need to support the decision of the firefighters association.
I agree.
Ultimately, how would we look saying, let's go have the festival anyways, when we're depending on them
We could not
to
say.
service all those people.
Okay.
So if we could get a motion then to authorize the village to follow the direction of the Firefighters Association and Fire Department and support their decision
I second that motion.
on the basis of public safety and the health and welfare of our community. Get all that. Are there any comments? Mike? Chris? Anything?
I'm bummed out.
We all are. I mean, the Strawberry Festival is the big day. I mean, you know, but
Yeah,
I'm sure they'll be privately, I'm sure people will get together, you know, during the summer to,
yeah, I mean, I like John's idea of maybe a concert or something, and a band playing. And if you don't want to go outside, then don't come. If you're worried about it, then don't come. But, is it worth it? I don't know.
yeah,
It's up to you if you want to come.
Fortunately or unfortunately, the entertainment in the evening is a component of the entire day. You know, that's what that festival committee works
Yeah.
for. And they meet year-round virtually, and they raise money, although they haven't been able to because of COVID. But that's why they don't want to risk spending all their money this year if it's a washout, and then next year they'll have nothing.
And the village underwrites the insurance for this event. So if something happened, we're still liable.
Like, what do you mean?
We pay for the insurance for that event.
So what would happen?
I don't know what would happen, but I don't know if there is such a thing as a liability if there's a super spreader because of our event. I don't think anything like that's been challenged. I just hate to put us in that position. And I don't know if that's what the fire department's thinking. I
But
have
your
no idea.
your point is taken, and it's actually shared
Yeah,
with us as well, honestly, I really believe that. It's like, I would feel terrible if there wasn't a, you know, they're pretty good at pinpointing where things originate.
Yeah.
We're talking about not just our community, but people coming in from other areas. And we have the two components being age and youth that are now the most, the age is declining because of the vaccination programs, but the middle-aged folks and the young kids are only now getting that protection. So we don't know where we'll be in 2 months with that. But it could all affect all of us. Okay, so there's a motion and a second. Do you have that? Okay, all in favor of the motion to support the Firefighters Association, protect the health, safety, and welfare of the community. If the festival is held or if it's canceled, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say no. Okay. Well, thank you. I know this is a really tough decision to make. You know, it's a tough thing for the community because we all know how much the festival means to the community. I think we all recognize that. Okay, moving on. The American Rescue Plan Act. we're coming up on near the end of May, we're going to have to give them some information on what the village would do if we qualify for funding under the ARPA, which is what they're calling that congressional monies. I still have not received anything or any indication of how much the village might receive, but it has been estimated by percentages of what the community outside the village, in other words, Addison Township will receive a lump sum, and the villages and cities would be, or cities are in the category of their own, the villages would receive up to 10% of whatever that amount is. The township already knows it's going to get $600 and some thousand. So hopefully we can think we might end up with 60,000.
What is that supposed to be used for?
Well, that's a good question. There's only, Congress in its infinite wisdom did make specifications about what the money can be used for. It's response to public health emergencies or its negative economic impacts. Assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, and affected industries, and the travel and hospitality business. You can also use the money to provide premium pay for essential workers within certain caps. Provide government services to the extent of revenue lost. Make necessary investments in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. We are prohibited from using funds for pension funds and things like that. No guidelines have been issued yet by the U.S. Treasury. This is all based on the initial release. The entitlement, we're considered a non-entitlement local government, so we'll be allocated on a proportion of population. Funding will first flow to the state, which originally was not the understanding, but it has turned into that. So funding will first flow to the state, and the state will then have 30 days to distribute the money to local governments, although they are allowed 2 30-day extensions if they're not prepared to do that. Allocations are capped, and most of it has to be, most of the communities have to have identified their projects by January, or they have to have most of the projects or the work underway basically from the beginning, would have been from the beginning of COVID when things shut down. So whatever costs, like maybe if our study was delayed because we couldn't, businesses were shut down for several months, costs like that could impact, we could probably make an argument. So that's what I'm recommending to the village council, is that we authorize the village president to indicate that funding would be used for sewer services, for the implementation of engineering studies, etc., for that use. And quite honestly, we're a pretty low budget organization to start with, and we've done well. We did well through the 2008 downturn when the recession hit us, and we're doing good now. And I knock on wood when I say that. So it's not like we've suffered huge losses in revenue from, revenue sharing, property taxes. We're not having a lot of foreclosures. We've had a couple this year, but it's not like it was. So it's pretty tough for us. We don't have full-time employees. We don't have health benefits in the village. So possibly we could, Don Irwin worked all the way through last year helping the village. he could be authorized some extra pay, something like that. But we don't have a lot of places to spend it, so I think at this time we take advantage of it and use it for our sewer preparation, and maybe it'll even get us started into the hard engineering end of it, getting things that, once we've decided on a system. We'll have until 2022, I believe, to spend the money. So we have some breathing room once we get it authorized. But we have to put our application in I believe it's before the end of May. So I'm asking for a motion to authorize the village president to do that with the subject, potential funding being used for sewers and essential personnel. Let's call it that for now.
It sounds like that's all we've got, so I would make a motion to complete the application.
I'll second.
Are there any questions, or?
Is it a use it or lose it?
I think if we don't give them something now, yeah, it would be a lose it. So I can't say that with any, like I said, the treasury rules haven't come out yet, so I don't know what, we have no clue. And they have said, in all of the literature that I've read, is that you don't have to make fast decisions. But remember that the ARPA Act came out almost 2 months ago. And so, they're saying, don't move too fast, but now they need to know something. So we have to tell them. And I think legitimately we can, with those two, we can do it. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Are there any other questions, comments? Okay, hearing none, do we have a roll call, because this is kind of a money thing?
President McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sudbury?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Arundel?
Yes.
Mrs. Swack?
Yes.
Okay, motion carried, thank you. Okay, the final item under new business is a cable live broadcast. The village was approached by the Oxford Addison Community Television to give us the option if we wanted to have cable broadcast live as we are meeting from the community. It is not free. We would have to buy equipment in order to do that, and I think it was in the 900 to
It is 900.
900 and above.
Yes.
Yeah, to do that. I honestly didn't build it into the budget, and I'm not sure we really have enough
This
meetings
is
to...
substitute.
Yeah, they would still continue to record, but it wouldn't be live.
If it's live, they can interact with the council, correct?
I don't know.
That's what my understanding, that would be the difference. Zoom, they can, see it. But if we go live, I think they can interact, so then that adds another thing to it. What my understanding is, look at the number of people who follow this when we Zoom. Is that number great enough that you think it's worth spending $900 for the live broadcast?
Who runs it then?
I assume the cable.
The cable, I think, would run it, but we have to pay for the equipment. Each municipality
Right.
will have to spend $900 for this equipment if they want it.
How long does the equipment last us?
No idea.
Until they
Couple of
upgrade
years?
it or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, until something else. Better comes along.
What's up for?
Well,
Can we make the decision next year? Or is
I don't
this like a, you do it this year or never again?
No, I don't think it's that. What they were going to do is write for a grant for the purchase. And I think with the grant, you'd still have to, each municipality pay $900. So they want to know if we're interested. In the future, it probably would cost more than $900 if we change your mind.
we don't know that, and I'm not sure that we get enough utility out of a live meeting. I mean, we're a small community, it's not like we're spread out over miles and miles where people can't.
And to Sharp's point, I mean, we generally had
One or
Max
two.
of
Yeah.
4,
Yeah,
5 attendees at a time.
Not that I don't want them here, but
right.
Well, you can see, they could attend tonight if they chose.
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, we'll take no action on that, but I will explore maybe through Shard, see if it will be an option in the future.
Okay. We have a meeting in 2 weeks, so.
Okay. Okay, so if there's no, I don't think there's any need for action. We don't have to vote no on it or say we don't want it. I think if we're just not going to take any action. If the council's comfortable with that, I'm going to have to shave. It keeps pulling my face mask down off of my, or that or I'm talking too much. Is that possible? I don't know. Okay. All right, so we'll move on then. Old business. We did get one more small donation for the downtown fundraising. I think it was $18. So that would be added on to the total that we had last year, or last month. But nothing further on that. For my report, we had one Freedom of Information request by email that I answered. We have not received any applications for block grant work for our home improvement program, or excuse me, minor home repair. Ordinance enforcement, I haven't had any official action, but I've had 2 complaints from different areas multiple times about motorcycles and go-karts driving noise. Apparently sometimes they drive without mufflers and stuff, and some people are complaining. Police have been alerted, they have talked with them. I didn't notice anything this past weekend, anything objectionable anyways, but I just want to put it out there that you might hear something about that. I personally am in favor of a person being able to use the property any way they want, as long as they're not disturbing the neighbors. And we do have a noise ordinance, that if we had it's one tool that we could employ, but you know, it's one of those things where it's a small town and neighbors try to get along with neighbors as much as possible. And I think as long as we keep in mind that we don't live on large, most of us don't live on large lots, and you just have to show some respect for your neighbors. But hopefully that word of the wise will be enough to handle some of that.
Mike, one question on ordinance enforcement. Have we heard anything back on the yellow house on Forest Street?
No, not a word.
I think animals will probably move in.
Other than, pardon?
Animals will probably move in.
Yeah.
Raccoons, birds are in there by now.
The house is gonna go.
We did file the lien. The lien has been filed on the property, although I'm probably going to have to notice them again because of the grass and maintenance of the property here shortly. But no, that's all that's going on with that. And then, I know the council's already heard, but the application for congressional earmark for the sewer did not make the top 10 list. So, effectively, it's not going to be considered. On the upside, the Addison Township Library did make it to the top 10, so they'll at least be in the running for they're only, as I understand it, there's going to be two allocations for each district, so.
You missed the PW report?
Yeah, there isn't anything. Basically, unless you've got something.
I was just gonna say, I've gone up and down Bays 4, 5, 6 times over the last couple weeks, and it's fine. About the only place there's a lot of potholes is from people's driveways where they're pulling out quickly, it feels like.
And see, we went over the next day after the complaint and saw nothing for
It's
a
fine.
complaint. And we cleaned up the tree that was the issue.
And we appreciate that, you know, So, I did talk to a couple different residents on Beza, and they think that we did put some signs up on the new curve and a couple of 25-mile-an-hour signs on the utility poles, and they think that it's made a difference already, at least with the UPS and FedEx drivers. So that's a big improvement for them from their point of view. So, okay, moving on then to the trustee and committee reports. Summer Festival, well, we kind of covered that. They did eliminate, if they have it, they did eliminate fireworks for this year. And they're anxiously waiting the news next week because they're running short on time if they were going to have the normal activities that they generally have to get them locked in. Cable Commission, you said 2 weeks?
Yes, I think it's the 24th. Yeah.
Decorating Committee, we were supposed to get a truckload of something today, but,
We were, it looks like it's still in transit.
oh, is it?
That's what it looks like.
You gonna call
But
us
that-
at
Maybe. So yeah, that stuff should be really here this week. And decorating committee meets Wednesday. Nothing will probably be put out till we get the cement done first. And then we'll start setting everything out.
Good.
We are looking for volunteers to help paint, not that this has anything to do with the decorating committee per se, but I know that July 7th, we'll be looking for painting volunteers to paint a couple buildings here in the village. To help do paint.
Visual.
Yes, it'll be a visual look. Again, trying to help bring some life back into the village.
Okay, great, thank you for that. Okay, the North Oakland Transportation Authority, they have a meeting next week, next Thursday. That I'm aware of, there's still reduced ridership, but they're running the same number of routes. It's 10, I think it was right around 10% below what it was last year, but it's to be expected with the outbreak, you know, with the higher infection rates. I think people are being a little more cautious. Planning Commission, I have not spoken with our planning chairman. I don't think we have any applications, but can we leave it in the Planning Commission or the chairperson's hands if they want to have a meeting rather than just cancel it?
Yeah,
without knowing?
I don't know how much
Yeah.
she needs.
Yeah. Okay. And I have not had any luck with candidates yet. I haven't given up for the 2 empty seats. Okay. Pine Trail Management Council, that meeting is also next week. If you haven't been on the trail in the village, you really need to take the time to do that. They did a heck of a job between Elmwood Street and Dirt Road, cleaning that leg up, and they're working their way back into the village now from the west, cleaning up, taking down big trees and stuff.
Looks real nice.
So yeah, it's not back to where it was in 1984, 1988 when the railroad abandoned it, but it's really coming along nice. Mostly volunteers doing all that work. Village Park, we're scheduled for a meeting this week, but we're not going to have it. We are having a work day on Saturday.
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, so. Okay. Community Development Block Grant, everybody should have gotten the latest report. They still don't show the money for 2020.
2021.
2021, I'm sorry. Yeah, so that probably won't happen until June or July. And with that,
I have a couple things.
I have no further correspondence. Okay, go ahead.
Historical Society next Tuesday, 1 o'clock here. And I don't have correspondence, but I do have a notification from the fire department that they are starting a GoFundMe for Chuck Johnson's family. I don't know about needs, I would rather not say, but I know that they're starting a GoFundMe, and they will do some sort of memorial service, it will be very small, and they don't want a lot of people, but they encourage people to pay their respects. And more information on that will be coming probably to the village. Some of it will be going out on Facebook.
Yeah, as soon as I get it, I'll let everybody know. And then we can do a broadcast to our email list to serve to residents and others that have signed up for it.
I'm done.
But after that, I have two things. I need approval to start this up to $500 once we get the planners in. I'm assuming 500 because I need the dirt for the planter and the plants. And if we don't meet before they come in and I can put them out, I'd rather have the approval now that I can go ahead and purchase those things.
Okay,
And I have it in our budget to be covered.
well, Judy has the last word on that, but,
No, I have a number. I mean, I'm more than
yeah.
covered for it.
Yeah,
Okay. But if I can have a motion to at least not to exceed $500 to help, I might need more, but I'll please start
To find it.
find it.
I'll make a motion that we grant the decorating committee $500 for their planters for dirt and flowers.
I'll second.
Thank you. And then my next motion is,
Well, let's do
I gotta do a roll call.
I'm
one
sorry.
at a time first, please.
Sorry, Steve.
Okay, everybody's familiar with the motion to authorize not to exceed $500 for the plantings and dirt for the decorating committee. Any questions on the motion? Better do a roll call.
President McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sotheby?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Aaron?
Yes.
Mrs. Swack?
Yes.
Motion carried. Next.
Next is, I need approval coming out of the Roland Hall budget to get a couple pictures blown up, because we're having the painters come in
Okay.
first week of June, and we've got a couple historic pictures that we want to get blown up on canvas to put up here to kind of change and update the look here in Roland Hall and going up the stairs.
Any idea how much that costs?
Probably a couple $100 at least.
Yeah, we're early in the budget, we haven't spent a lot of the hall, so I don't expect that to be a problem, long range.
So not to exceed, how much?
Is that 100?
How much?
500?
No, I don't
All right, go big or go home. All right, how about 300? Maybe 300? I'm assuming 100 for each picture, so I'm
That's your-
looking at
that's
1, 2, 3.
You're making the motion?
I make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay.
Thank you, Sharon.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We do, yes. Yeah, okay, we have a motion and a second. Authorize up to $300 or not to exceed.
Not to exceed.
Any questions on that? Hearing none, can we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Swack?
Yes.
President McDonald?
Yes.
Mrs. Sotheby?
Yes.
Mrs. Aaron?
Yes.
Motion carried. Don't spend it all in one place.
I know. Charlotte's gonna help me spend it.
Yeah, that was interesting. Any idea what pictures?
She has one,
Oh, okay.
That's the cool one.
yeah.
Of course we do.
Nice.
in front of Roland Hall, so that would be really pretty. So,
Good. Motion to adjourn?
I still move.
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's closed. Thank you for your attendance and thank you, Chris, for volunteering.